When talking about whiskey, it's hard to say exactly what the best part is. I mean, there's so many, right? How could you choose? And it's just so dank. Neat Nation, welcome back to the show, the Unnamed Whiskey Show with me, Drew P. As always, I'm just thrilled to have y'all here as we're going to talk about what I believe the best thing about whiskey is. Now, before we get into this, just a couple things. If you're new to the channel, welcome. All are welcome here at the Drew P Whiskey channel and over at the Entry Proof Podcast. You can check out my podcast with Brian Bikey at entryproofpodcast.com. That's a great way to go deeper and go a little geekier actually when it comes to whiskey content, tastings, brand reviews, etc. On that podcast later this week on Thursday, actually, we will be detailing our barrel pick experience with Starlight Distillery. That was awesome. Really, really cool experience. Thrilled to share that with you guys through the pod. Today, as we talk about this idea of what the best part about whiskey is, I'm gonna give you a little bit of warning. It's not gonna be as maybe quirky. I mean, I take it back. It'll definitely be quirky. I can't make a video and not make it a little bit weird. But it's a little bit different from the usual bourbon banter, as they might say. Might not be what you think. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great things about whiskey. It smells great, tastes great, makes you feel good, it's collectible, it doesn't go bad very quickly, it looks beautiful. All that's amazing. But I don't think any of that is the best thing about whiskey. I think the best thing about whiskey is that it can bring people together. I mean, it's fun. I mentioned that already. But it's fun in a social context. Like, it's something that we can, sit around a fire and enjoy sipping a whiskey together and appreciate the glories that is whiskey. Glories may be a bit of a sacrilegious stretch. The bottom line is it's pretty dope, and it's pretty dope to share together. It makes talking and sharing easy. I mean, it breaks down the walls that we naturally have as people. Maybe some of us don't like sharing as much as others, or we find it difficult. We have emotional boundaries, that's a thing. And whiskey can help just lower those boundaries a bit. And makes us make friends easier. Helps us make friends easier. Anyway, we find that the social environment we're in is a little bit easier, maybe if we've got some whiskey involved. So it can definitely bring people together. Now, here's the thing, is just because it can bring people together doesn't necessarily mean that it will. So I think the reality of this situation is that whiskey may bring people together, and it's going to require some intentionality on our part. Like, whiskey, as delightful as it is and as freeing as it is socially, can also be intimidating. It's a world full of rich detail, full of variety. I mean, you go to the liquor store and you look at the shelves and you're like, holy crap, this is a little bit intimidating. How do I navigate this? Now, granted, it's probably not as intimidating as, say, wine when it comes to pure purchasing, but it's not necessarily easy either. There's so much. How do we figure out what we're supposed to know about whiskey? Particularly in the days of, Whiskey Tube and whiskey forums and podcasts. And I mean, there's so much information out there. How do you stay in the know? How do you keep up with the Joneses? That's intimidating if we let it be. That's something that may make it difficult for somebody to come into the bourbon verse and feel like, oh, I'm okay here. Like, I'm okay interacting with these people and being a part of this community with the limited amount that I know. So that's not great. There's another thing about bourbon too, or whiskey in general, is that the taste is kind of acquired. Like, nobody just loves whiskey. I didn't when I first tried it. Like, it's pretty harsh. It's hot. There's a lot of alcohol. Kind of burns. It can come across as bitter. I mean, there are notes that we certainly pull out as our palates get acclimated. The sweetness, the florals, the fruitiness, the spiciness, delightful flavors. When you first taste whiskey, the reaction we see more often than not is, which is fair. It's pretty intense. I think the final thing that makes whiskey intimidating is that the whiskey community, American whiskey in particular, is fairly monolithic, meaning that generally we're all white dudes, and white dudes with generally similar backgrounds. I mean, I have access to some demographic data just from Neat Nation, and by and large, you are white dudes aged 25 to 45, with a decent amount of you aged 45 to 55. Like, I have a pretty tight demographic. There's not a lot of diversity in people consuming whiskey content on YouTube. Is that bad necessarily? No, but it may be intimidating for somebody outside of those demographics who are interested in this rad product that we should want to share, like specifically women and minorities. There's not a lot of women and minorities in American, like into American whiskey relative to the amount of white dudes. So for us who want to see the propagation of American whiskey and hopefully celebrate like the community within American whiskey, that we should be aware that this community, as we call it right now, is fairly monolithic. And I think we should want to see it grow beyond that. Like, there is a danger that the lack of diversity within American whiskey right now can create an environment ripe with unhealthy dynamics. And here's where I would say that American whiskey, our enthusiastic group, may be in danger of following the pattern of golf. Now hang with me. Like, if you follow the channel at all, Swing Nation, you know that I love golf. I'm just obsessive about it. It's the beautiful game. Actually, that might be soccer. Well, you know what? I don't like soccer, so now golf is the beautiful game. But golf, I mean, not only does it have a history of being terribly exclusive, if you go on a golf course now, which I've just gotten into it over the last couple of years, it's not going to take you long to find conversations and opinions that are far from gracious and welcoming. Like, I've only been in the golf community a couple of years, and the kinds of conversations that I've overheard or had somebody try and bring me into are pretty not great. Like, the racism and xenophobia, like, it's ripe. Like, I'm in a golf simulator league, and you hear guys who, they're being the guys, and they're just calling other people in the simulator league racial slurs without hindrance, just because they know the people. And I'm thinking, are they okay with that? Like, is that all right for them to call people? Like, that just seems wrong. Like, it seems like you're creating an environment of entitlement where you can say whatever you want without fear of consequence. Like, that doesn't seem gracious or welcoming. And that's the norm. There's a lot of racist and xenophobic conversation that happens on the golf course. There's also a lot of sexism and misogyny on the golf course. It's unbelievable. It's disgusting. Like, while golf may not be as exclusive as it was, I would venture a guess that it's probably not perceived as welcoming for many. And like, I'm a tall white male who's a business executive, and I don't always feel welcome on the golf course. Like, it can be that level of bad. Now, are these attitudes ubiquitous within the American whiskey community now? No-ish. I mean, they're not ubiquitous within golf. They're common. It's not part and parcel with golf, but it's sort of in danger of being that way. And I'm concerned that if we're not aware of it within American whiskey, we could quickly kind of become that. There are some of those sentiments. Like, as you spend time on Facebook groups and in bourbon forums, like you Reddit, it's pretty evident that when people are allowed to speak their mind, you see that some of the sentiments that I would view as dangerous, unwelcoming, unwarm, unkind within the golf verse, they are also present within the American whiskey verse. And I think that puts our hobby in danger. Like, not only do we want our hobby to grow, more than that, hopefully we want to be decent human beings who treat others with care and respect. And it's easy when your group is naturally monolithic for you to even sometimes unknowingly accept patterns of behavior and communication that are destructive to the people outside of your relatively monolithic group. And this is why I really wanted to start making YouTube videos. I was actually inspired by a guy in the golf industry whose name is Eric Anders Lang. Eric started a movement, really, on YouTube that has spread a little bit, showing up on other socials, and it's called Random Golf Club. And the idea behind Random Golf Club is the idea that all are welcome. Like, it's not about private clubs and, talking about your yacht, nothing against yachts, but it's really meant to try and help break down some of the barriers that have grown up within the golf world over the course of 200 years of golf, and try and create a future where golf is for everybody. Because it's clear that this exclusive pattern of golf is probably not going to make it in the long run. What's maybe much better for golf and for our society in general is to create an environment where people can feel comfortable playing a gentleman's game, and where the people who actually claim to be gentlemen on the golf course might actually behave that way. Now, Eric's worldview is quite different from mine, but that all are welcome ethos is something I can definitely get behind. Hopefully we all could do that and say, like, yeah, I'm about that. I hope that what I do and the way I carry myself and the things I say actually create an environment of warmth and welcome versus an environment of hyper-tribalism and exclusion. Like, I wanted to create whiskey videos and podcasts, things that anybody could appreciate, regardless of how much they knew about whiskey or how much whiskey they had or what their background was. Like, I don't want to assume that because you're watching this video, you see the world the way I see the world. Like, that's probably not helpful, and it means that I'm probably approaching the world with a very, very narrow focus, maybe too narrow of a focus. I wanted to bring a never stop learning kind of energy. Like, this channel, my podcast is about learning for me. Like, that's kind of why I got into it, was for learning and hopefully to help other people on their journey of learning. Like, if we can put ourselves in a position that we don't know everything, that there's probably a lot that the world has to offer us in terms of perspective and knowledge, then we might have a bit more of a humble disposition. I also wanted to try and connect with people that I didn't know. Like, in the midst of COVID is when I started this stuff, and I was just like socially starved. And I would hope that, as I connected with people, I would connect with people that I wouldn't normally in my daily comings and goings, that I would meet people outside of my church group, that I would meet people outside of my work group, that I would meet people outside of my friend group, that I would be exposed, that I would learn and come to know people who view the world in a different way than I do. Really, I want to meet people who are different from me. Liberals or conservatives, Californians or Texans, hipsters and hunters, men and women, black people and white people, and beyond. Like, I hope what I create is truly a forum to bring people together. Like, I've seen in the whiskey community, I've seen it bring the same kinds of people together. I'd like to see our community transcend that. Like, I think the best thing about whiskey is that it can be a forum by which we can meet and learn about and care about people who are different from us. People we didn't know before, people who stretch us to be better versions of ourselves, more thoughtful, more gracious versions of ourselves. Now, before you write me off as a woke millennial, please keep in mind that I grew up in Texas. I was homeschooled. I'm a business executive, and I'm a Christian. It's not about being woke. Like, it's not about drawing lines. It's not about judging people for having a different perspective. It's the contrary. Like, I think regardless of what your background is, liberal or conservative, if we're just going to make it an unnecessary dichotomy, then the approach of canceling, the approach of writing people off, the approach of being overly presumptive is not helpful for our society. It's destructive. Like, our increasingly digital, tribal society leaps at the chance to be destructive, to shut people down, to cancel, that kind of stuff. But that's not helpful at all. Like, I think what we need most, like one of the most valuable things that we might offer our society in the days ahead, is the ability to bring diverse people together. Like, the kind of people who can do that, like, that's going to be unbelievable. Because right now we're all just running to find the people who are most like us, because that's comfortable, that feels safe. Like, I think that's natural for human beings to do, but I definitely don't think it's helpful. I think it actually leads to division and violence, whereas we benefit as a species from encountering ideas that are different from ours. And if you happen to be like me, if you claim Christianity, part of our whole shtick is that we're supposed to be reaching out and loving and caring for people who are different from us. Like, it's not so much about getting frustrated when people don't believe what you believe. Of course, that doesn't feel great, but at the same time, a response of anger and violence is the complete antithesis of what you say you believe. So yeah, this video is going there. It's deeper than most, but I feel like we as a community can probably benefit from that, a little introspection. While we want to celebrate whiskey and enjoy it, as my other video had said, we want to be careful about the dangers of it. We also want to figure out where we take this thing. Like, how do we become better? How do we grow as a whiskey community? Like, how do we do good for the world? How do we use this hobby to actually be constructive? And that's what I want to do. And that's what I want to challenge you to do. Like, enjoy your whiskey. Enjoy your whiskey with your friends who are like you. Like, that's not a bad thing. Like, to have friends who are like you, to have drinks with people who are like you, that's, again, very, very natural. But I do think for the good of humanity, we should all take time to go like, well, how do I go beyond this? Maybe it's not as fun. Maybe it's not as comfortable. But I think it will lead to better us's, meaning that I think we will grow in our understanding of the world we live in our understanding of our fellow human beings. If we look to bring other people in, if we assess the community that we have now and go like, what is potentially dangerous or harmful for people who maybe aren't like us, who maybe want to come into this community, who are maybe interested in the product that we're interested in. Like, that's an opportunity for us to grow, for the community as a whole to grow. Be people that look first to create connections. Be hesitant to slam, be hesitant to crush. Like, we rush to do that. I'm like, every day on CNN and Fox News, it's this politician slams this politician. It's this celebrity slams this celebrity for somebody who said something they didn't agree with. And it's just like, good grief, can we just stop fighting for one dang second? Be people who look to create connections. In our society, I think there's a bright future for people who can do that. And hopefully that's what we can find ourselves doing in the days ahead. I think whiskey is an awesome medium for that work. It's such an awesome product that people like learn to love pretty quickly. And there's so much to learn about it that we can find a lot of community and embrace people who we never thought we would get to know. And learn so much that we never even cared to, if we're willing to kind of seek out those opportunities. If we're willing to listen to other people. If we're willing to welcome other people. If you're down with that, great. Glad to have you. If you're not, that's okay. I mean, I never thought that this channel would be for everybody. Squad, thanks for watching the video this week. Next week, we're going to get into some whiskey geekery. We're going to talk about what the deal is with Four Roses. And as I mentioned, over at entryproofpodcast.com, we've got a lot coming your way from our barrel pick at Starlight, where we picked 2 barrels to bring to supporters of Neat Nation. So be sure to check out entryproofpodcast.com, where you can check out that most recent episode coming this Wednesday. And then you can catch up on all the ones we published up to this point. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay healthy, stay safe, and remember to keep it neat.